Welcome to the Tribe of Testimonies. Here you will find conversations with faithful Native American members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, sharing their stories and their love of the Savior. My name's Andrea Hales. I'm Navajo, and I'm glad that you've decided to come and join us today. I am on the line today with Harriet Whitmer. It was last year, was it? It was last year when I started reaching out to different places, and I just happened to find Harriet. So Harriet, would you please introduce yourself in your tribal way as much as possible? If it's in your language, great. If it's not, that's fine. Not everybody speaks their language, and some languages are dead.
Well, see you. I am Harriet Whitmer, and I am the granddaughters of the Wild Potato Clan. I do not know my language, but I am working on that. And because luckily, I should back up. I belong to the Cherokee Nation. I'm enrolled with them, and they have a language program online, and so I am in the process of doing that.
That's so cool. I love when I hear that people are doing language classes online. I think it's so cool. That's an opportunity in this day and age.
Definitely. Not that it's been available before like it is now.
Yeah. So Harriet, would you share something that you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel of Jesus Christ? It could be pretty much anything. A story, a celebration, a way of life, a ceremony. What do you love about your heritage as it relates to the gospel?
I love how they always are celebrating their belief in the Creator, and how they're always wanting to show their love and appreciation and asking for His blessings. And I love that, and I love the ways that they do it. They do it through dance, they do it through smudging, they do it in lots of ways.
That's cool. So, Harriet, were you raised as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints?
No, I was not. I am a convert. I actually was introduced to the gospel by my husband. He was a returned missionary. We were in college together, and I had known him for a couple of years. And then finally I said, yes, I'll go out on a date with you. And we talked a lot. And then he says, I have a couple of people I think you would be interested in talking to. So I said, okay. And I've loved the gospel ever since that first meeting with the missionaries.
That's so interesting.
The Lord prepared me for that. And I never saw that as being that important at the time, but as I've grown through the years, and I find it miraculous. Why me? But I am grateful.
You kind of mentioned too that you didn't know your whole life that you were Cherokee. Do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, I knew my mom and my grandma looked different than my friends' moms. And I would ask, and I was always told, we're American citizens. We're American. That's all you need to know. And I'm going like, okay, that's as far as we're going to go. And
even though they had you could see that they were different, they wouldn't tell you.
No.
That's so weird.
Well, if you think about the time, it was not okay to be Native for my grandma and for my mom. And so there wasn't something that was just out there and shared. And so I get it kind of now why. But as I joined the church in that time, I don't know if it still is that way, but we were asked to do a 4-generation chart, right? So I go like, okay, I'm just going to brave it. So I go to my grandma and I say, Grandma, I just need to have some information here. And she was very upset. My whole family was upset that I had joined the church in the beginning. Okay. So, and my dad didn't want to share. My mom knew nothing. And so I go, if the Lord's going to ask me to do this, He will help me find a way. So gradually, as my grandma would come and visit, because now I have a family, and my grandma comes and visit often, and I would just ask little things. And then eventually I noticed she's going to Oklahoma kind of often, like at least once a year. So I'm going like, so Grandma, what do you do when you go there? She goes, oh, I visit my mom and I get some health checkups. I'm going, why do you go there? And then she'll say, well, because I'm Cherokee, Harriet. Like I should have known. And um, and then she started telling me some things that how she had an allotment that she had was receiving. That's how she was living. Because I'm going, she hardly does anything, but she didn't live very, very well, I should say, but she made a living for herself. And then I found out she was enrolled, and I'm going, oh my gosh. So I get right on it. In those days, I didn't have a computer or anything, but I start finding out some things through the genealogy library at church. So I'm there and I find an address and I find out some things I need to do. And anyway, it's a 5-year process of receiving my enrollment number because I had to trace my grandmothers, back to the Dows rolls, which is the rolls that all the 5 civilized tribes go to prove their lineage. And they have to have a direct parent on there, grandparent on forth. And so that's where that started. And I've just been rolling with it ever since, as much as I can. We have a local tribe here, and I worked at the school. And at one point, um, an administrator came to me and said, Harriet, you're enrolled with your tribe, and we would like you to do the Indian education program here on campus. And I'm going, oh, but I know nothing. And they said, that'll be okay. You'll learn. And I have learned a lot by having that job. I learned a lot by working with the tribe, learning that, I think I want to say almost all of our tribes celebrate the creator and in their ways. And so that was something that I learned. And I learned a lot about how the struggle has been for Natives in America, and still is a struggle. There still is a prejudice, and but overall, I just see, like it says in the scriptures, they're blooming like a rose in the desert. Is just beautiful, and the way they've been able to come back to who they are, and it has helped me to learn that for me. Anyway, I've done that Indian education program for about 30 years.
Wow. Is that like K through 12, or what program?
It's pre-K through 8th grade. In our area, we still have like elementary schools, and then we jump to a high school. And I was asked to do it at the high school too, but I feel like it is overwhelming to do too. And I thought I just need to focus here, and I'm just really very grateful. It is supported by 4 different grants. And at one point, the administrator who asked me to do this job left. And then I had to be taught how to do the grants. And nobody could teach me because they didn't know. So at every time that a grant opened up or any kind of maintenance I needed to do, I would always say a prayer. And I would say, Lord, I know this is your work. Please bless me to know how to do this. And we have been getting those grants for 30 years now. So, I mean, the Lord has blessed me with that as well.
Wow. Have you been able to reconnect with any of your Cherokee family?
When I found out that from my grandma, finding out a little bit more about her life and growing up and her family, I found out that she had like 4 brothers and I knew about her sister. She was my Aunt Hazel, who also looked like my mom and my grandma. But anyway, so I went to, like, my grandma goes, I'm going to have this big meeting with my brothers and Aunt Hazel. Do you want to come? And so I went, and I'm looking at these men and my grandma, my uncles, and I go, they're small built, they're lean, handsome, handsome people, and how I really enjoyed it. And one of the great uncles had Parkinson, and so he was bedridden at that point, but he asked to see me. He didn't know who I was, but he asked to see me. And so his wife took me in and we started talking, and he gave me some genealogy, which opened up a lot of avenues for me. He was not a member, but he said, Harriet, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, those Mormons, have the best genealogy department you could ever go to. And I said, thank you. I said, I have been looking there, but I don't know where to go. And so he gave me information, and yeah, that helped a whole lot too. So the Lord just makes stepping stones for you as you go along if you're on the right path.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah. I could have asked him more, but it was very tiring for him. And he died not long afterwards. But it's like now I wish that I knew I wish I knew how to have asked my grandma certain questions. I knew it was really difficult growing up. Her mom had just, as a child, came to Tahlequah, and it was going snake community. And she was given property and an allotment because they'd already moved, probably 3 times by then. And so she lived there. It was a hard life. And then my grandma was born, and with her siblings. But by the time my grandma was 13, her father had died. And so the boys went to I think it was called the Hotchkins Orphanage, which was an Indian orphanage there, which no longer exists, or any like trail paper of it existing anymore. So they were there. My auntie went to go live with one of her aunts, and then my grandma stayed with my mom, trying to make a living to supply food for themselves and for their extended families. It was just hard, and then I don't know how they wound up in California. I don't know if it was displacement, because we know that they did that the government did that they would displace people into different areas throughout the country. That's how Wilma Mankiller grew up in San Francisco, is that she was a displaced person. And I forget what it's called when they make you go somewhere else to live. But anyway, and then she kept following her roots until she finally came back to Oklahoma and then became the chief of the Cherokee Nation. And so, anyway, so somehow my grandmother and her brothers and sister wound up in California, and that's how I wound up here. And it was like my grandma's best kept secret. I remember meeting my great grandma one time, and she looked just like my mom, my grandma, and my auntie. But that was all. I was so little. I could sit here and think of all these questions I would love to ask, but it's not going anywhere, And so it's thinking about that. I don't think any of my grandmother's siblings grew up in the Native way, or their children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I actually didn't really think about the displacement thing. I've not really talked to people about that before, so I didn't know that about Mankiller. I didn't know that about her or any of it, actually.
She was amazing, and the first time I saw her, I was like, oh, she's the chief of the Cherokee Nation. Was not very impressed. But then as you listen to her and you read some of her words, you're going like, what an amazing woman she was. She really was. And to me, that was the marking point of the progression of the Cherokee Nation, of encompassing their nativeness and encompassing gathering their natives, which has been just progressing all along. It's been amazing. In fact, they have now an outreach program, and in California, I think it's broken up into 3 different groups. And I'm part of the Cherokee Nation of the Greater Central Valley. There's also one in the north, and there's also one in the south. And through them, you kind of can meet up and just learn some more about your heritage, about your culture. And it's nice to go and see when I have a son that's very blonde, blue-eyed, takes after his dad's side of the family and my grandfather. Anyway, he didn't want to go. He says, I don't look Native at all. I'm not going to go. Well, he went. And I said, I think you're going to be surprised. And he really was. That, yeah, there were some blonde, blue eyes there too. There was some darker, there was some lighter. And he started to fill the fit a little bit better. And so he's gone to a couple of other activities with me, to just see how it goes, what it's like.
That is cool. That's cool that even exists in California.
In California, the only Native perks that I really get in California is that I get to use the Indian clinic, and then we have a dental clinic, and the natives just started a vision clinic, so I get to have opportunities to visit each of those. Now, if I need to go outside of those realms, then my insurance has to pick it up. But other than that, I support it. I actually love it because they're more inclined to listen to you about how you feel about your body.
Huh.
And that's an important thing to me.
Yeah.
I don't want to put those drugs in my body. What's an alternative? And then they'll say, well, Harriet, and then they'll either refer me to someone within the group to talk to, or they'll give me some ideas.
That's so cool.
It is amazing. The tribe here was so very poor. Just growing up, I just remember how poor of a tribe it was. And then they put in a casino, which a lot of people were very upset about. They don't want them here, and blah, blah, blah. But you know what? I, through the years, have seen how their families and their lives have changed. And they're not offending like they did, because once you offend, then you have a harder time finding a job. And so then you have to keep reoffending in order to keep income coming in. And now that's not that way. I have probably a couple of families that still struggle that way, or in their family. And other than that, they have lives that are just awesome, participating in dance, participating in their language, and seeing a big change in them with that. And I tell them all the time, especially those that I know were a little bit more rough around the edges, I'd say, you're being a great dad. I am so proud of you. And they will say thank you. They will. And to me that just I don't know, gives me goosebumps. Just makes, and they always are welcoming to me, whether they want to hear what I have to say or not. They always have been respectful of me and included me in everything. And I've learned a lot.
That's so great. So what are some of the things that you have learned in your career that you were surprised about?
The purpose behind dancing. There are several. The purpose behind wearing regalia. There's different reasons behind that. I learned to respect the regalia a great deal because we don't touch them. And the respect, where some people might not call it a respect, but a respect of a woman's time when she cannot participate in dance or be in the room when certain things are going on. I love that. I read an article, now I can't even remember, but it was of a man who fought against Custer in the Last Stand, the Battle of the Bighorn. And he said, we dress. Some people don't understand why we dress like we dress when we go to war. He said, we dress in order to meet our maker, our creator. We want to look our best. And so we want to be prepared. And we wear our regalia when someone is sick, when we dance, or when someone is in a spiritual need. And I love that so much because Isn't that what we're supposed to do every day? We call it armor, put on our armor to prepare us for the day. We don't know how the day's going to end. We always need to be prepared to meet our maker, our creator, which is our Heavenly Father. And so that's been a wonderful thing to me. Smudging, the purposes of smudging. I actually do that in my home, especially after there's been a sickness or a confrontation or something, because not just the spiritual part of it, but also the healing of that smudge because of those herbs that are in there. And so I open my doors and I smudge, and I am saying a prayer to Heavenly Father. I realize this isn't considered, the humbleness or whatever, but that it is a cleansing power as well, just to clear myself and my home. And so I do that. I do not participate in dance because I don't know what that is, that I will someday. And then I've learned the difference between a powwow and a drumming and stomping. Just so many things. Our tribe here uses a clapper stick that they make, and they've shown us how they use those. It is a ritual to go out and glean these pieces of things that they're going to use for basket making or anything that they do. There's a ceremony. But the clapper stick goes with their stomp dance. And they use flickers, which they use across their heads, their eyes, not to blind it, but to hide them in a hunt. Is just wonderful. So in my job, most of the grants, each of the grants actually focuses on like 3 areas: education, cultural, and language. There's a big push for language right now. I do not know it, but I invite people in from various tribes that know their language. And then they will share it with either our small group. I have about 100 students out of a 300 to 400 student population. And the tribe will also share their languages with us and the whole school. And then also cultural events. It's up to me to find people that will come and do and share cultural events. So storytellers, dancers, various things like that. And so each tribe has their own story about the creation. They have their own story about earthquakes. I mean, just every event in life. And I love listening to them. I never tire of it. Never tire of the dance. My daughter's husband went one time, and yeah, he just said, I can't believe you can sit here and listen to this or watch this. He just had to get up, And the rest of us are just like the whole time. It's so calming, so peaceful. That anyway, I found that fun too.
Fun. That's so cool. Do you live right by the reservation? Is it a reservation or?
Well, in California, they call it a rancheria.
Okay.
Yeah, I live in the foothill areas, not far from Yosemite. And so in California, they are known as the Miwok tribe. But each Miwok tribe has their own name. Like here, there are 2. One is the Tuolumne Band of Miwok, and then about 10 miles away is called the Chicken Ranch Miwok. And they have picked up and have just building a huge casino, medical center, all these things that will benefit all Native Americans. And I'm just very excited about that too. And they have their little differences, but mainly they kind of stay the same. In California, there's like the foothill Miwok, the coastal Miwok, the valley Miwok, and so they traded with one another. They found spouses that way, and on just a lot of things. And I love hearing those stories too. I have one family that, well, they kind of grew up in my program too, but were friends with my children, and talked about how their parents met. And because I always thought it was funny that when the mom was over the mountain range and then the dad was here, how did they ever get together? Well, they both were sent to Indian schools. And so they met at the Indian school. And they decided, let's get married. We like each other. Let's get married. That's our way to get out of here. And that's what they did. And then they children and then children. And it's been, I thought that was quite a story. I never had heard that. I had heard that the dad had been in Indian school, but so, that which brings to mind that a lot of people go like, why can't natives just get over this? Why can't they just move on? And my thoughts are, in native world, lots of times it's the aunts and the uncles and the grandparents that watch their children or raise the children for whatever reason. And so, it's not that far removed. When you think about it being my grandmother having to be raised in that kind of an environment, that affected my mom. It definitely affected me. And in fact, my mom was raised most of the time by one of her uncles, which is a common practice in those days. I don't know, it could still be, I don't know. But that trauma just kept going down. I mean, to come to me and say, you're American, that's all you need to know. I understand that better now, but that's a shameful thing. That is a shameful thing that you're still afraid to let anyone know that you're Native.
How did you end up where you live, between or right next to those tribes?
Okay, I grew up here. So I wasn't born here, but in fact, I was born in Kansas City, Kansas. The rest of the family was born here. But my grandmother was in California, in Fresno, and she met a man, and his father had a hunting cabin here, and so they moved here. And so naturally, my mom followed her mom, and that's how we moved here. And now that I know what I know too, he was native from a tribe. It's called the North Fork tribe, which is again Miwok, but called the North Fork tribe, just a little south from here. And I remember going to his mother's place, and they looked a little different too. But I just, people are people, and didn't think much about it until
So
later
wait,
on when
your grandfather's also Native?
my step grandfather.
Oh, your step grand. Oh, got it. You did say that.
Yeah, I don't know that I did, but yeah, he was a step grandfather, and I really loved him. He was amazing. But yes, and so in my job, I went to North Fork to check out how they were running their program, and I go, wait a minute, this is all Native world right here. Oh my goodness, my step grandfather was Native too, and he had to have come to Fresno for some reason and met my grandma, and then it was there, and then so I lived here all my life. And then when I was a senior, we moved north to Yuba City in the Valley, which I never was comfortable with. But I went to college, finished high school, went to college, and that's where I met my husband. And then into the church, and then finally finding out what I'm made of. And here I am today.
That's awesome. Do you have any members in your, I'm assuming it's a ward, do you have any members of any of those tribes in your ward?
Not that I'm aware of, because I don't know. In our area, they took our wards and we had 2 wards and made it 1 ward. And in that time, I was attending a small branch called Groveland. It was an assignment for us. My husband was a high councilman, and so we were asked as a couple to attend. And so that's where we would go on Sundays. And then he eventually became the branch president. And it's a portal, or I think it's called a portal to Yosemite. So we have a lot of visitors, but most of the people in the branch are older and retired. And they are usually from like the Bay Area or somewhere where they had money in order to be there. And anyway, so my husband passed away, and I have remained there as part of the branch. Eventually, I will come back because it takes me about an hour to drive to the branch, but the ward is only like 10 to 15 minutes away. So I know I will be going back, but at this point, it's just more beneficial to me to stay at the branch, and I do have callings there as small as it is, I'm one of the few that do have a calling, and I appreciate that. So, and in that area, they're yeah, they're just older people coming out of the area. Um, some no, there's a time when it's really popular to be native, and so of course a lot of them have native background, but they can't tell me where, what, or why, and so I never divulge more. I've offered my books. I have books where they could trace their ancestry, their native part, but that doesn't seem to go very far either. Which is interesting. One time I had a parent that, yes, we're Cherokee, and my dad, and she would tell me stories, so I knew that they were native. And I said, well, just, you need to enroll in one of my grants, but I need to have a roll number. You can use your dad's. Well, so finally she did, and she's Cree. She's not Cherokee at all. She did, and I go, oh my gosh, you're Cree. You're not Cherokee. She goes, what? And so she looks and she goes, oh. But anyway,
That's kind of
pretty.
that's
So
interesting.
a lot of people, might be. They just don't know how to figure it out or what they really are. But anyway, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, totally. What else should I ask you, Harriet?
I think one of the things I wanted to bring up too is like when I got my enrollment number, I encouraged my mom and my siblings to get their roll numbers. And at first they kind of didn't want to. Why do we want to do that? And I said, declaring your heritage is an important thing to help you understand who you are and why maybe you think the way you think. And so they gradually did. And it was difficult because there were not computers in those days where you could search. They had to go back into the files to find you, and they were kind of grateful for that. My children all participated in the Indian Ed program on our campus, which, by the way, is the only Indian Ed program in our county, and we have probably 10 elementary schools, 2 major high schools. And then, and so I thought that's a big deal right there. And so I'm grateful that my family has done that because I think it does help them to think better about where they came from, about why they make choices like they do. But some things are ingrained in us. I'm not saying only in Native people, but I feel like once I found out I was Native, I understood more about how I felt about nature, why I felt about nature. I was never taught. It was just that connection that I had. And that kind of helped me feel that way once I found out, that my clan kind of is the keeper of those things. And so I think that helped my family have a little bit of healing and understanding. My dad, who was probably the most angry that I joined the church, wanted to be baptized in the church and his name taken to the temple, not knowing much about it at all, and taught me then that you never give up. You never give up. You just have faith that it's going to happen here or there, but it's going to happen. My mom was a little upset that he had that goal. That she was okay with it in the end. But my dad died, and those were his last words to my husband. Please take my name to the temple and do my temple work. He had started watching the BYU channel, and I think that helped a lot because there was a special on Korean vets, because my dad was in the Korean War, and I think it helped him understand, listening to those men, how they can have a belief in God, how they can feel forgiven, and what they needed to do, what they were asked to do. And I think it helped soften my dad's heart because it was probably the only time he ever heard those kinds of words. And so he, that softened his heart to do that. My mom never had that feeling toward the church, but she kind of connected more with her native ways. She made dream catchers for each of her grandchildren and children, and tried to do things like that. The other thing I wanted to mention too is our food. growing up, my food was different than at my friends' houses too. And now that I've learned more native things about how we eat, I understood that better. And I thought my grandma was too poor to go to the doctor, so she did her own little remedies. But now I understand those were native ways that she was doing it. And I try to implement some of those that I remember her doing. Um, no, I'm just grateful for my heritage. Um, I on my grandma's side also there was Italian who and then I look at all of those cultures, the Italian, and especially the Irish and the Scottish mingle with Native world. They're kind of similar in that they how they prepare for war, how they prepared to do anything, and dress and the whole thing. And I just really enjoy it. And as I retire, I'm looking forward to participating more with my tribe.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. How close are you to any temple?
Well, it takes me 4 hours to get to India Temple. Oakland is probably it. So when you kind of look at the map, I'm clear on the Sierra Range, making it across a major valley to the coast. So it's about 4 hours. But we are getting our own temple, which will only be an hour and a half away. It's called the Modesto Temple. You could look it up. It's I'm hoping that it's finished before I die so I can attend because it's been our dream here forever. And so I just went down and it's part of our stake center. So when we got our stake center in Modesto, it was a big deal and a big building with this big lot of land outside of Modesto. Well, now it's almost like in the middle of Modesto, and we saw this big piece of land, and the talk always had been the future temple was going to be there. So we used it as a baseball field. We used it for parking if there was a major thing going on, and so it's just been there. And now to see this happen is, prophecy come true.
That's so cool. I just was wondering because you mentioned your grandfather asked you to take your dad asked your husband to take it to his name to the temple. I just wonder if you've had any temple experiences.
Yes. When my husband took my father's name to the temple to do his work, it was a very spiritual experience for him and for me. I felt my dad's presence there and his excitement and his willing to accept that. I also had a brother who had died very young. Um, in fact, it was on his 16th birthday, and it was he was part of a choir going to the Bay Area from Yuba City to the Bay Area with his school, Yuba High, who fell off of an off ramp at the Martinez Bridge, which was very high, crushed a lot of LDS children because LDS love to sing. Mormons love to sing. So there was a lot of them there, and my brother, and he had died instantly. And it was pretty tragic for the whole community. And later, my dad asked, well, actually, I asked my dad if we could do my brother's temple work. And my dad said, yes, go for it. It was, to me, my first major temple experience after receiving my own endowments and that, which was, I felt like I'm home. I'm with my people, and that when my husband did the work for my brother. First of all, his namesake, my son, did the baptismal for him. And then my husband did the rest of the work for him. And I was so overwhelmed with the joy of his being able to progress. It was very overwhelming for me. And I've had so many experiences going to the temple like that it just bears truth to everything that we're taught about it. And I also want to say how I appreciate the men in my life from my dad. was a tough life, but I appreciated my dad having respect for native world and native things. And I never understood why until I found out, well, yeah, my mom's native. I mean, that makes sense now. But my husband was always infatuated with the native world more than I ever was. And he just was, and all these things. And then to find out that he was married to one, kind of was very just joyful to find out that that's not going to affect my life with him or anything else, because he loved the native world as well and always supported me in it. In my job, I traveled to conferences. I did all these things, and he would take time to go with me and support me in that respect and learn some things too.
That's so great. I love that. How do you feel about the Book of Mormon? Would you talk about the Book of Mormon for a few minutes?
Yes, especially now that we've been going through the war chapters, and I had thought about that. I go like, so now I find out, Lamanites were not looked upon very well in the Book of Mormon. They were always considered native, and all these things, and it never affected me. I think I saw people as people, and I didn't actually think of the Lamanites being all native. It was a name that we titled people that were non-believers and enemies of the Nephites. And in my mind, I kind of looked at the Nephites also as being native. And I think it just never affected me like it did some people. And it's funny that the friends I have that are affected are not native or have any connection at all to native world. Yet they're kind of offended by that. And I'm going like, what? No, Harriet, you're just different. I'm going, no, that's not how it works. I love the Book of Mormon. I feel blessed that I never doubted it. I never doubted the story of Joseph Smith's first vision. I thought that was the way it was for all people that were investigating the church. That I realized that those were special gifts for me and blessings, and I always am amazed that the Lord would give me that kind of a blessing, that I would believe that. When I was a teenager, I don't know, I've always had a belief in God. I should back up. I would find friends that were going to church to come pick me up to go to church, and I would go to church with them. And so I've been to a lot of churches, I have to say. So by the time I was in high school, in our little area here, there was a big push for a non-denominational church. All my friends, I mean, our school at the time, high school was probably maybe 200. And so you have a lot of friends that are participating in this. And there was a big push to get baptized. And I prayed about it. And I go like, it's not the true church. I know it's not the true church. I'm not going to do it. So some of my friends faded away, but some still stayed, thinking maybe I'll change. But I didn't do it. But I started reading the Old Testament a little bit more, not understanding it. But I recognized the truth there that we were made in God's image. I recognized the truth that there was a prophet. I recognized the truth that there were temples. And so I recognized those kind of things, so that when I was presented those things, it was easy for me to say I believe. And then I would read the Book of Mormon. So as a mother with babies during the night, I would read the Book of Mormon. That would help me not be so anxious about going back to bed, going back to sleep. So I would read the Book of Mormon. I loved it. I had the opportunity to teach it twice in seminary. I've had the opportunity to teach it in Sunday school. It is the most pure book that we could ever read to help us in these days. And especially when we're reading it now and we're seeing what's going on in our world, it is like word for word, we see it happening. And I love the Book of Mormon.
Thank you. Well, I love all the things that we've talked about. I feel like there's just so much joy in your life because all these different parts of your life have collided and you know who you are. But I know that you're first and foremost a daughter of God, and I love that. I do have one final question. What does it mean to you to know that you belong to the tribe of Israel?
it gives me strength. It gives me hope that I can return to live with my Heavenly Father someday, and that we could all be together. Um, I I think I've landed. I think is the word best suits me, is that I've landed in feeling who I am, how I got here, and all the parts of the puzzle that came together for me. Um, I find that miraculous that I can find out that I'm Native, that I also get to work in that Native world, that and that's how I've spent my life, is in the Native world and in my church world, and how they work together. And I that is a special gift. Not everybody gets to have that. Not everybody gets to have that. I didn't have to grow up with the prejudice, and I am grateful for that. But as my job, I did see it. It was surprising to me in this day and age that it could be there, that I could see it. And people talk to me about their prejudices toward Native girls, but I'm okay with that. People can think how they want to think. It's up to them. But my job was, I was there for my families. I was there for my students, and it didn't bother me if there was something else going on. That was not who I am. Mine is, I don't know. I think if you put my back against the wall, I'm a fighter. If you don't, I'm there for the ride, or I'll just give my piece. But you put my back against the wall, I'm a fighter for my people, my Native people, and my religious people, my church people. That's the line for me. Of course, my own children too, but they're part of all of that too. So I have found that part about me too, because I did not speak, I didn't step up, I didn't do any of those things. I was just there. But then pretty soon I was like, no, this is not okay, and became that person, a fighter. And that's what we are. We're fighters in the church, and we're fighters in our culture. We fight for what's right.
Cool. Thank you so much, Harriet. It's been so fun to talk to you. I was born with a believing heart. It's something I have been blessed with. I received my own witness that Heavenly Father is there and listening to me when I was young, like very young. And that has just helped my believing heart. Recently, my third born, my son, he asked me about, well, he was more concerned about not having his own witness of things, because President Nelson has asked us to have a witness, to seek our own witness, and to be able to know for ourselves. And so in our family, we've also talked about that. So my son, Quentin, was concerned one Sunday when I brought that up again. He's like, I've never had any great thing happen to me. And he hasn't. And that's okay. I told him, you know what, you probably just don't even know what it's like to not have the Spirit around you. I said, have you been doing things you're not supposed to be doing? No. Have you been seeking things that you shouldn't be seeking? No. I said, you probably are just so used to having the Spirit that you don't know what it's like to not have the Spirit. I said, Quentin, you might not have a vision. You might not have angels visiting you in person that you can see, or words come into your mind, but you are blessed with the Spirit just by being around. And I told him, I said, I have a believing heart. That's something that is easy for me. I said, that might not be your easy thing. You might have to work at things differently than me because your spiritual gifts are different than my spiritual gifts. So we talked for a while, and I feel like I helped him understand things, but I've been thinking about it, and I don't know if I've explained things well enough to him. He hasn't come back to me with the same questions, but it's on my mind. I think about it, I pray about it when I think about it, and I just wanted to share with you that we all come about our testimonies differently. We all have different spiritual gifts. We all have different questions. We all have different things to bring us to God and our Savior, Jesus Christ. And my son is going through that. Even at his young age, he wants to know. And I love that. And it's just something I wanted to share with you today. And I hope you have a super wonderful, awesome day. Tribe of Testimonies is not sponsored by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. The music is a traditional hymn, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, arranged and performed by Kyle Forsyth. I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear how this podcast is affecting you. And I'm always looking for guests. If you or someone you know would be a great guest, you can reach me at tribeoftestimonies@gmail.com.